Rand, I need another episode of Fully Cinematic.
Time to do a rundown of the second of Bruce Willis's customary 400 or so movies for the year, Gasoline Alley. Our story begins with grizzled tattoo artist James Jane being solicited by a Russian escort at a bar, Rocker's, close to last call. A couple hours later, we meet grizzled police detective Freeman and his much less hard-bitten partner Vargas investigating a duck crime scene featuring four dead girls, including the one whom James met at the bar. And wouldn't you know it, a cigarette lighter bearing the logo of his shop, the titular Gasoline Alley, is on the floor. As it turns out, the detectives knew Jimmy's late pops, who drank himself to death and just happened to be a cop too. His mom was a toot-like star, the dead girl from Rockers. After filling Jimmy in on their suspicions of him, the detectives also questioned his girlfriend Christine, who's not the least bit concerned or even jealous about him being the last person to be seen with the victims. Jimmy, who of course drives a vintage muscle car, a '66 Chevelle that sadly has modern wheels, pays a visit to his friend, television star Dennis Burke, whom he protected from this during a 5-year bid in San Quentin. He'd gotten cased up for putting a dude in a wheelchair who'd attacked him with a screwdriver during a fight. After leaving the set of Dennis's hit show American Siege, Jimmy gets shot at by somebody driving a black 2011 Land Rover. So he drives a Chevelle like he stole it and gets away with his life, a shattered window, and a shot-up door. So he calls Roy, a set mechanic and fellow ex-con working on American Siege, for a ratchet and gets a six-shooter with a taped-up handle within hours. All it costs him is an unnamed favor down the line. Jimmy suggests putting LA in the rear view to Christine, but she's already ahead of him. She's got a ticket to Berlin for the following Monday. Jimmy's dirty LAPD contact shoots some info on the guy who owns the Land Rover, Percy Malini, and he makes his way to his house in the hills later that night, where he's throwing one of his regular parties. Dennis is there too, so's Freeman, and oh shit, the DOC. Jimmy confronts Percy, who's a spicy producer, who claims to have never heard of the murder victims. But Kaiser, a giant who provides security for Percy, pulls Jimmy aside and gives him a lead. Would-be singer Eleanor Rogers. Jimmy tracks her down at a recording studio and gets more info, including a tidbit that Percy lied about knowing the girls. And then shit gets even deeper. While Jimmy and Eleanor were chatting, someone dumped a corpse in the trunk of his car. It's Kaiser of all people, and Jimmy immediately takes his body to Freeman and Vargas. While this is going on, Percy gets his neck snapped in his office. Of course, the Chevelle is now a crime scene, so Jimmy loses his wheels. When Vargas drops him off at his childhood home, which was left to him but he now no longer owns, he confides his suspicions of Freeman. Speaking of suspicious, Jimmy pays another visit to the American Siege set to question his old pal Dennis. He in turn points him in the direction of screenwriter Erasmus Alcindor, who used to date Star. And when Jimmy catches up to him, he's packing in preparation to haul ass out of Dodge. Erasmus reveals that Percy was trafficking drugs from Mexico and only got into the spicy business in order to launder the cash. And he got into pimping for the hell of it, I suppose. Well, Starr got the bright idea to blackmail Percy and his muscle, which includes another dirty cop, an ex-cage fighter named Flasso, and Freeman, who was the one who had the girls killed. By the time Jimmy calls Vargas, he's figured out most of this BS already. So Jimmy goes to save Eleanor as the organization is clearly tying up loose ends, and he gets jumped by Flasso. Remember when I said that Flasso was a former cage fighter? Well, Jimmy ends up beating his ass anyway. How exactly? Your guess is as good as mine. Vargas shows up just in time to miss the whole fight and he arrests Flasso. Freeman, meanwhile, murks another cop in order to get away. Flasso claims that Freeman blackmailed him into joining the operation and divulges that Eleanor was abducted and taken to San Diego. He and Jimmy cut a quick deal and the former agrees to lead the latter to the location, a store above a drug tunnel to Tijuana. When they arrive in a stolen police car, Jimmy smashes Flasso's head in with the car door. Freeman and the DOC, who's named Dr. Feelgood in the movie, have a head start, but Jimmy turns into the Sicario all of a sudden and mows down a bunch of heavily armed soldados in the tunnel without breaking a sweat or dropping his cigarette. He catches up to the DOC and Freeman, plugging them both but running out of ammo before he can finish Freeman off. So he lights a fire with a stack of cash and uses it to set him ablaze. Once again, Vargas shows up just in time to miss the shootout and greet an unscathed Jimmy and a rescued Eleanor. We then see in a flashback that Jimmy and Star only talked the night that they met. He even offered her a job as his secretary before they parted ways. Jimmy drinks at Rocker's because it's the same bar where his mom used to get her customers. It's gotten to the point that Bruce Willis's mere presence in the cast of a movie is a bit of a red flag. He even has his own category at this year's Razzie Awards for sake. Gone are the days when you could see Bruce's name on a film poster and realistically expect to feast your eyes on big budget spectacle, transcendent action, top-notch production values, and sometimes just plain old quality entertainment on any level. The John McClane saga has been replaced by a string of cheap, straight-to-streaming buckets of dishwater starring younger B-list actors backed up by Bruno in a supporting role. Everybody's favorite dead psychiatrist is more or less the Hollywood equivalent of a veteran player on a down-and-out NBA team. He may have been an all-star in the past, and he's the most famous guy in the lineup, but he doesn't start and doesn't really seem to give a shit about the game at all. Believe it or not, Gasoline Alley does have pretty decent production values and doesn't look cheap at all. The star of the movie is Devon Sawa, unrecognizable from his days as a babyface young movie star, or even as Stan. Luke Wilson has a sizable role too. We all know that Willis can play a world-weary cop in his sleep, and Wilson strapped on a badge before too. The DOC shows surprising chops given that this is his scripted film debut. Hopefully he'll find a better project next time. Gasoline Alley is essentially a neo-film noir with a tattoo artist playing detective. The story's sufficiently convoluted and plenty of unbelievable shit goes down. And surprise, surprise, the two black men with speaking roles both work with a drug dealer and they both get killed. We still doing this shit, Hollywood? One of them is portrayed by retired NFL tight end Vernon Davis, by the way. Time will tell if this thing lands a nomination at next year's Razzies. But this movie, and just watch one of the first 4 diehards again instead. In other news, it's time to highlight a few comments from previous shows. Referring to the Power of the Dog review, XIX85 said, "That movie sucked. Netflix movies are just horribly filmed." Yep, I thought it sucked too. John from the Anything Show with John Francois said in response to our Respect review, "I love Respect. Fantastic movie." And in reference to our Oscar 2022 nominations episode, Danielle M. said, "The show is outside today? Cool." Hey, it doesn't hurt to mix it up every once in a while, Danielle M. Shout out to XIX85, John Francois, and Danielle M. for dropping comments. And shout out to everybody who subscribed to the channel. But I've had enough of this conversation. I'm logging off.
Fully cinematic.